Hi, welcome to another episode of the Will Frederick podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. And today I'm really excited about this episode because we have one of my oldest friends, my cousin, who I've known since he was born. And we're going to talk some real estate today. We've been tracking each other's career paths for 40 something years now. Welcome, Ryan. How are you
Thanks.
today?
I'm good, Josh. Can I call you that?
Yeah, you can call me that.
Are you sure?
So this is a fun little, that's fun. So my name, listeners may or may not know, is William Joshua Frederick. I go by Will professionally, but the people who've known me since before kindergarten, which is when I started being known as Will, know me as Josh and still call me that. So yeah, that's fun. That's awesome. So everybody knows my dirty little secrets
I can
now.
call you Will
I love all the names.
if you prefer.
No,
that was a creature of habit there.
100%. It took me back to our wedding day 19 years ago. Ryan actually was the minister who married us, and he started calling me Josh, and half the wedding was like, what's going on, But anyway, it was fun. It's always been a fun story. So that's the great thing about doing business with family, because you have all of our history. We know each other so well, and it's really awesome.
Good to be on.
Yeah. So, another thing I'll share with our listeners is that Ryan is actually a big part of the reason that I even have a podcast, because this conversation happened probably 5, 6, 8 years ago. I don't know. But, you called me for some real estate advice. We had a great conversation, and you were like, man, like you should have a podcast. Like you're very helpful and good. And I was like, man, you stick a mic in front of me and I'll talk. And so a few years later, it came to be. So thanks for the idea.
Yeah.
I would like to. So part of the reason I wanted you to come on, Ryan, is because when did you start your real estate investing journey?
I'll answer. Won't be too long, but I would say when I first got married. I've been married 22 years now. And so we knew that real estate was something we wanted to do. I guess it depends on how you define investing in real estate, because we just used the house we lived in, our primary house, to kind of do the investing. The rental property stuff started in 2020. But before that, my plan was just to do the whole, it's very beginner, but the whole live in it for 2 years, fix it up. And we hit with a couple of timing things, like 2008 dip and all that. We were able to buy some foreclosures, fix them up, sell them. So we did that 5 or 6 times while we were having kids and everything. And we did pretty well with that, I think. And it always was in the back of my head what if you repeated this? What if you scaled this idea with real estate doing this? But 2020 is when I finally bit the bullet on getting properties beside my primary residence.
Now, you talked about, this is something else that I constantly tell people, using your primary residence to then fund your real estate. You bought your first rental off of a HELOC, right?
A
home equity line of credit?
My second one, I did that. I don't know if I'll share all the business, but
no, you don't have to. I remember now some of the history.
Yeah, there was an inheritance amount of money that I was able to receive, and that kind of we had a ton of equity in our primary residence and was kind of ready to make a move for the first one, and then we got blessed with this inheritance money that just made it a whole lot easier and less scary.
Yeah.
But it was something in the works for in my head for a while. And I know me, and I'm kind of an overthinker and an analyzer. So, there's some questions you sent that we'll get some of that out too. But yeah, my first one wasn't on a HELOC, but we did have a ton of equity in our house. And so that would have been the engine to do that. This other money just made it a bit easier and a little bit less risk.
You needed.
Yeah, exactly. A little push.
Yeah.
And then the second one I wanted to do it as if I didn't have that chance, for the first
Hmm.
one, and just let's see if
Yeah.
I can do this one. And so the second one I did off of a HELOC, and I got infinite returns on it on that second one,
Hmm.
which I was pretty proud of. I
Hmm.
used the HELOC,
Yeah.
fixed it up, refinanced, and put all that money back, which has been
Hmm.
great. So the cash flow
That's
is
awesome.
small. With any, I think,
Hmm.
infinite return kind of deal like that, you're going to pull out as much as you
Yeah.
can in the refinance, and
Hmm.
so it makes cash flow small. So I've kind of got
Yeah.
these two different entities, which you start to, I think, as you start to see as one thing. You go, oh, this one cash flow is only this much, but
Hmm.
this one, the cash flow is big, and so you just
Right.
start to
Right.
see it as one pile rather than
Sure.
this one and this one. But the purchase
Right.
was
Yeah.
on the second was through a HELOC, which I'm proud
Hmm.
of on that. So
Yeah, no, that's a really good. And speaking of proud, I wanted to, part of the reason I wanted you on is because I talk a lot about my style of investing to our listeners, and I advise a lot of people. And I'm a pretty, as you well know, a pretty risk tolerant person. Not many people are that way, and I don't know why I'm that way. I'm grateful for it, but I just don't think like a lot of people think. And so I want to be able to enable people who do think a lot, who are, like you said, overthinkers, to be able to say, okay, I can do this too. I don't just have to be like Will, I can be like me, and I can still build wealth through investing in real estate. So I am proud of you because, because you're my cousin and I love you. And I've seen you overcome that mindset of like that analysis paralysis. And you've said, I'm going to do this, So it's an inspiring story and I want to tell it.
yeah, I think that
So,
the as I've thought about it more, like even as a kid, I wasn't that risk scared, like and I don't
no,
I
you
don't
weren't.
think I'm that way really. I just think there's a confidence. So to me, like when I look at you and I look at me, there is like a personality difference of risk tolerance, but I think it has a lot to do with just you have confidence in yourself that you can make it work, and so you're like,
Mhm.
I can go take this risk because if something bad happens, I'll make it work. And you kind of,
Mhm.
maybe since you were a kid or even younger, I know you've
Mhm.
always been like a business minded entrepreneur type.
Mhm.
But you just have confidence that you'll make it work. And I've got other friends like that, some that are pretty like more risk averse, I would say, than me. They just have this
Mhm.
confidence that they'll make it work out
Mhm.
and they'll still live through
Mhm.
it. And I think my
Yeah.
journey, I'm trying to, I think I just need to stretch myself so that I can build the confidence that I can make it
Mhm.
work. And so one of my good mentors here in Omaha told me, that does real estate stuff and kind of helped walk me through it on this side of things.
Yeah.
Immerse yourself in it,
100.
practice deals.
Mhm.
I did
Mhm.
50, like went through about 50 deals, just pretend before.
Practice deals. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
pretend deals.
And so that helps build confidence. But really, until you get back up in that corner and it's happening, that's the way to build the confidence over time. And
Yeah.
I think some people just are naturally more confident in their own abilities, and some people not so confident in their own abilities. I would probably fall in that less confident. And so to me, the journey is like boosting my confidence to go, I'll make this work, even something that I can't analyze to make work before it happens. I just know that when
Mhm.
it happens, I'll make it work. And to me, that's the
Yeah.
biggest prize, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and and all wealth building is really a personal journey of self development. Like you're growing
totally.
yourself at the same time you're building confidence. You're doing all this stuff. One of my favorite that reminds me of one of my favorite sayings, which is "Get comfortable being uncomfortable."
Yeah,
I really like
it's
that
great.
saying. I mean that applies to so many different things in
Everything.
life, but what you just said, like back in yourself into that corner, and I think some of the times that I've operated, I've said to myself, well, I'm not sure what's going on the other side of that mountain, but if I go over the mountain, if I just jump, I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna figure it out. I will paint myself into that corner and say, what do I have to do to get out of it? And it's not gonna be fun, and it's not gonna. I'm gonna be hating life for a minute. But on the other side of that, I know it'll work out. And on the other side of that, I'll be glad I did it.
It's just like, where's that line between delusion and confidence? Because you see, I see people all around me that something happens and they didn't make it work out, and then their whole family, like it affects, you know what I mean? So they lose their business, they lose everything, or now they're in all this debt. That happens too, and so it's just a tricky.
It is tricky
thing to, and I just think it is about that confidence, and the more times you work yourself out of that stuff, like the more times you experience
it's
that
a muscle
comfort, then you just start to build the confidence. Maybe you'll take it too far one day and lose it, I don't know. So it's kind of a balance.
I mean, that's what. Yeah. Well, and I it's funny that we're going down this road, because I asked Rhonda one time. Rhonda's my wife, for those of you who don't know. And I set out my core values, and the first 3 of my 6 are risk, discipline, wisdom, risk, and discipline.
Yeah.
And so wisdom is the first one. And I told Rhonda, because Rhonda's kind of a chicken on stuff too. And I'm like, why? Like I said, I know I take a lot of risks. And she said, well, you do, but you take wise risks. And so I want to go back to something you said about doing your research and immersing yourself into it. I really didn't go off half-cocked. I sometimes paint it like I did, but I did a lot of research. I did a lot of study, and I think that's important to do, because you don't want to go in uneducated. You want to educate yourself, and that's what this podcast is about, helping educate people so that they can build that confidence muscle and then take that step. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Just do it.
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, well, it is almost completely psychological, the whole wealth building, even money. It's just psychology, so much of it. And so kind of knowing yourself. And so, everybody's different. Like, some people are going to research things to death. Some people are going to just go right into it half-cocked. I'm not saying people like you, but some people do. They just go, oh, this is something a lot of people are doing, and they're getting rich off of it. I'm seeing on YouTube, and let me just go buy a house, and it'll work out. And I guess that's you're backing yourself up in the corner, but you might not have the tools to work yourself out before too much pain happens because of the research you didn't do. So I like to know, going into something, I really did everything I could to avoid this situation. And that's not always the case. I've got a situation going on now with a main that I had to replace, and it was super expensive and stressing me out big time. And I found out that you could get insurance on the main, and some places require it, but the city will offer insurance on mains. And I just didn't know that. And so I'm going, oh my goodness, that's something I could have done something about. And so I got that insurance on the other house now. But
I bet you did. Live and learn.
I like to know that, okay, I did everything I could. That was one case where I did it, but at least I didn't go in recklessly, or especially for that first one, as I was in that research period for probably about a year, maybe even a little more, before I actually did anything and made a deal. My realtor was probably a little aggravated with me, but and then I bought $100,000 house off of her, so she's like, anyway. So I researched it to death, but I think that's a good thing to do, to have the tools when something bad happens. You can go, I didn't just dive into this thing without wisdom or knowledge, So
you said something earlier. You said it's psychology. Did you read that book, Psychology of Money?
Yeah.
Are you reading his new one called The Art of Spending Money?
Well, when we were in town, you guys told me about that one, and I haven't read it. But
I'm in the middle of it. Ryan. I've been thinking about you, not just because of this podcast, but I'm in the middle of that book. I was like, Ryan needs to read this book. It's
that first one, I've recommended it to 5 or 6 people after I read it too. It's very relevant.
Fantastic.
I look forward to reading that other one.
Yeah, so just for everybody, Morgan Housel is the author. He wrote 3 books on money: The Psychology of Money, which is the one that we're talking about that we've read multiple times each, and then he did one called Same as Ever. It's also very, very good. And then this recent one that just came out called The Art of Spending Money. And it's his like money trilogy, and it's fantastic. It's all about like how you think about money, how we behave with money, and it's so good. So anyway, just quick little side commercial for that.
It's a great book. The one I read is amazing.
Yeah. So so everybody knows Ryan has 2 rentals right now, and he's done several flips. So tell me about the mindset. I mean, you kind of hit on a lot of these questions I had for you, but was there a moment that you almost didn't do it? I know you geared up for a while, like moving up to that. Were you like, I don't know, like tell us about where that is? Because that's, I think, where most people are. You kind of minimize where you are, but I think you have 2 more rentals than 99% of people or 95% of people out there. That's huge. And I want people to understand like where you are, they can get to from where you were.
Yeah, I think this isn't going to sound like I'm answering the question, but I'll get to it. It seems like there's probably more than 2, but there's 2 types of people. There's people that are motivated to like use rental property to create a snowball that builds wealth for them. And then there's people who make a lot of money in their day jobs and they already contribute to retirement. And they're just like, what should I do with this extra money? Mine was the first. I was motivated, which kind of answers the question of the motivation really is kind of the biggest thing. And I've always had that motivation to, like, I work at a church as the music director. And so I'm firm. And when we were raising my kids, my wife was at home. So I'm squarely in that middle class, paycheck to paycheck for the most part. When you pull it out by 5 years, short of a little bit, like we basically spend what we make for a lot. Spent what we made for a lot of years, and I'm not satisfied with that. And so that's always been like a burning in me to how do you escape that? Not so that I can be rich and not have worries or work or anything. I like to work, but just that's not a sustainable to me. That's just not acceptable to me in the long term. And so how do you beat inflation, or at least float on top of it or hedge it some? And, if you're in that spot, you're probably always going to be in that spot. And I'm not saying that to depress. Most people are in that spot. And I think even people with high incomes are in that spot. You find a way to kind of fill your income with your budget with your income, and then you're just in that spot, but just you buy more stuff. And so I always knew real estate and at least saving for retirement was part of that. But I would look at, just because I didn't fully understand it, I would look at a deal and go, okay, I can make $250 a month, $200 a month, and go through all of this hassle of buying a rental property for $200 a month when I can just cut a couple of lawns for $200 a month. That was a poor thinking on my part, or just young thinking, because I think that why is really what you have to come to terms with is people, like I said before, people see it on YouTube and they go, oh, everybody's buying rental property and you can turn 1 into 10 in a couple of years just by borrowing against all of them. But that's if they keep going up. And, so it's often exaggerated on videos and research on YouTube, which is what I appreciate about this podcast, to be honest, is that it is just the real deal. It's not, you're just talking to normal people and giving normal information. And not only that, you've proven that success is possible, but it's for you too, taking a long career of doing this.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
And so dealing with a whole lot of crap. And so I think that why is what is super important for newer people. And that's what I needed to find too. As I was toying, do I do this or not? Because that
Hmm.
why is just what drives you to when it's hard. Like, I've got this hard
Right.
thing going on. We couldn't afford that new main just with, we couldn't just pull cash out and pay for that new main. So
Hmm.
it's hard. Like, it drained our savings. But yeah, I don't doubt at all that we're on the right path because of the other things that I
Hmm.
understand, the other benefits of rental property
Hmm.
long term. It's pretty small beans. This kind of, even though it feels big to me now, it's small beans when you extrapolate it over the long haul. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think knowing that why is pretty key. People who don't know the why are probably
Yes.
the ones who will, something bad's going to happen and they're going to go, oh, this sucks. Why am I doing this?
I'm
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Yeah, you'll have those moments. I mean, I still have those moments. I've been investing over 20 years and it sucks. Some days you're just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, had to cut a check today. It wasn't as big as the check for the main, but an air condition broke down. Like like an inside unit or an outside unit had, it was like $2,400. And I was like, well, there goes a huge chunk of my cash flow for the month, which is nice to be at that. That's more than most people's cash flow, but it wasn't all of my cash flow, but it was, I was bummed about it.
Well, I know
So,
this is off your question, but I think it's interesting. And if I were listening as a new person, I would want to hear this because it's something I've explored. It's easy for somebody like me to go, oh, poor Josh. Your cash
yeah,
flow is like you have the lever, like you have the wealth now to deal with a lot of big problems. But what
yeah.
I don't always realize, I think that's a kind of a certain mindset that's like, oh, you have money to be able to deal with those problems. But I think a big difference is that you didn't always, first of all. And
Hmm.
then the second thing is, yes, that's one, but you have hundreds of, if I'm correct, hundreds of units at least.
150.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So over 100.
150
Yeah.
units that could all break their air. So everything is relative, like I'm
It's
dealing with,
all relative.
two, and two air conditioners can break and that would hurt me pretty bad. But you're dealing with 150 air conditioners that could break at any given time in a year. And so even though the
Yeah.
numbers are bigger, you can handle couple of grand on a given month or whatever pretty easily, I would say. But even still,
Hmm.
that's scaled up. So it's pretty much
Right.
all the same is what I've found
It
is
is.
that it's like the same psychology and the same burden
Hmm.
of even with this main thing, I'm like, man, that just killed my confidence and it killed
Uh-huh.
my like it feels like it killed my momentum to go pull the trigger on a
Hmm.
third, which I was pretty much like ready and geared up to do. And then this happens
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, can I handle a third that this same thing might happen to and this same,
More
and then I'm
exposure.
like dipping
Yeah.
into more debt to cover some of
Hmm.
those things for a couple of $100 a month each on these.
Hmm.
Sometimes those numbers can be like hard to sort out for especially for
Yeah.
a new person because they don't seem to balance. They don't seem to like.
Right.
I can spend 30 grand on a roof or something, 15 grand on a roof. That's like
Hmm.
3 years or 3, 4 years of profit on a normal run. So
Right.
now I'm just
Yeah.
behind for
Hmm.
3 or 4 years before I ever make another
Hmm.
dime off my cash flow. It
Correct. Yeah.
sometimes that can be like a little bit brain rattling, especially when you're
Hmm.
new. But I think that kind of comes down to the lack of understanding of the other benefits. Um,
Right. Right.
and as long as you're not living off of your cash flow, like if as long as you don't roll your cash flow necessarily, at least when you're in the
Hmm.
beginning, some people their whole lives, their
Sure.
lifestyles are supported by their cash flow,
Yeah.
not us. And
Hmm.
so as long as you're piling up that cash flow, you can
Hmm.
you can overcome that. And then you're right, it is 4 years
Right.
of all of your cash flow for that property. But and then if you're kind of in a dip too, you start going, oh my gosh, I'm not
Hmm.
making any money off appreciation now, not making any money for
Right.
years off cash flow. And so, yeah, and I don't know if I have a clean answer for that. You've got depreciation, you've got hedging inflation,
Yeah.
so you've got other benefits, you've got pay down. But sometimes those numbers don't always make the most sense. And so I can understand
Right.
that hesitation. That was one of my early hesitations.
Yeah. And I think it's valuable to hear from you because you're not where I am. And you're not like, because it's easy, like you said, for people to look at me and say, oh, it's easy for him to say, don't worry about it. He's got hundreds of rentals. He's got tons of cash flow. An air conditioner is a speed bump. And it is, but there were months where there were 5 air conditions and there was a year. I haven't added them all up, but I think I did probably like 20 something air conditions one year, just a few years ago. And it was extremely painful. Like I was like, hating life and cursing that I was like, what in the, so, but if I'm looking back and this is what I want to hear from you, if you're in where you are and I know the answer to this because I asked you earlier today, but like, are you still in this? Are you like, man, I don't know if this is a good idea. Do you still have doubts?
Yeah, when it first happened, I would say that I was like, Nicole was probably worried about me. Nicole's my wife. She was probably a little worried about me because I would like lay in bed. I'd go to bed early, and just lay in bed staring at the ceiling kind of thing. And she's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I don't think I'm all right." And so, I think, but I'm an analyzer. So I just, all right, what am I feeling here? I think I'm pretty self-aware too. So I can go like, all right, what's my deal? What what am I feeling here? What's the
hmm
psychology at play? And I think
hmm
for a minute I was like, I think this might just be for people who have a little extra money to work with, like because
hmm
this starts to dip into now our personal finances. It
Right, right.
it cleaned up all of our rental savings fund or whatever. But this starts to
hmm
really affect, like, now Nicole is feeling pressure about this, and it's no longer like a little side business that I'm hoping that works.
Right, right.
And so,
hmm
like, man, I did consider like maybe we're just not cut out. Like maybe this isn't the right thing for us, or maybe I can't handle this kind of thing, because there was a couple of things throughout that made me go, gosh, I like the construction guy. He had a quote for me, then they got on the job and he raised it by 5 grand mid job, and I'm like, what am I? So like, am I a hard ass enough, excuse my French, to like be like, no? But not
Right.
really. He had the leverage. Like, okay, I'll see you later then. And then my
Yeah.
tenants are in a hotel room, and now I got to figure out how to make a mess, how to make
hmm
something out of this yard. It's probably going to cost me more money now.
hmm
So there was a couple of things that I was kind of disappointed in myself dealing with, that, like just being a
hmm
boss man, so to speak. Like I was in a
hmm
hurry, and it was with other stuff at my day job, work stuff going on that I had to focus
hmm
on. And it just made me feel
Yeah.
like I failed a little bit, and I'm like, am I real? So it hit my confidence, like we were talking about earlier.
hmm
Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm backed
Yeah.
up in a corner and I can make this work. There's been a number of
hmm
things in my owning of rental properties the last 5 years that have made me go, all right, I kind of feel like uh, you know, a big man or
Big.
whatever here. Like I
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
win there, and I got to win there.
Yeah.
And, all right, this is confidence
Yeah.
building.
Uh-huh.
And then this one kind of just hurt my confidence a bit. So that,
Yeah. It took you down a
yeah,
notches.
exactly. And it's still simmering that way. Like I got money on a HELOC
Sure. Sure.
that
Yeah.
I just have to pay off now slowly.
hmm
And so, and it
How long have you owned this one?
5 years. This was my first one.
Have you tracked how much equity that you've built in it?
Yeah, yeah, I do that all the time.
Is it more than the cost of the main?
Yeah, Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, and that's one thing I learned, and I still have to do this to myself because I track it all the time too. Like I look at my equity, watch it build. And the hard thing, and I think this is a helpful mind game for me to play with myself, and it sounds like you too, is like watching that's the wealth that's building, that's the snowball that's growing that you don't feel.
Right.
Like
Totally.
it's only on paper.
Totally.
And you're like, I can't point to that. That doesn't hit my bank account because it doesn't. Now, I've highly recommend everybody track their net worth on a monthly basis. Every month I go in and update my net worth sheet. And that's a really good, if you're having trouble with that mindset, that's a really good place to go kind of take it out on that. You say, okay, so I am getting ahead. Because something you said earlier, like, for $200, like what in the world? Like it's a lot of risk, but what you decided to do when you wanted to get out of that rat race of like paycheck to paycheck and never getting anywhere, like churning, but never making progress. You said, I'm going to make a little bit of progress and it's going to be small and I'm not going to feel it. And some months I'm going to feel like I'm going backwards because that happens. But at the end of the day, I looked, like I was showing Rhonda, like our net worth tracker. I have this graph and it's like, it climbs. It's awesome. Like it's such a good,
I use that.
Like it's helpful for
I use
me.
that tool you gave me to track mine. And it is, that is where it's at to me. Like to me, that's really the only metric that matters in like, and so you have to make the cash flow work. You have to make your lifestyle work. But if that's growing, that's what I care about because that's the progress that's my why. I know that.
Yeah, it's the long game.
Like if my why was just to make more money now, I'd have gotten a different job a long time ago. I'd have changed careers, gotten into a field where I can make more money. But I know that I'm in the right career and in the right, and it's not because of money. It's other motivations and reasons.
Right.
And so to me, that metric from my goal and my why is all I need to really look at. And so, but it's not like I have a ton in there. Like I think it's pretty healthy. And I think for a lot of people, at least in my circles, it's good. And so, but even this hits that, because now it's debt.
Yeah.
And so my net worth comes down, and you're right. There is a lot of progress, and that house has made me more money, way more money in cash flow and appreciation than this hit on the main. So that's definitely like part of the factor. It's still a win. After I kind of went through that whole pity party stage or whatever, I'm bought into what this does. And I hope my goal would be to continue to get more. It just might be a little longer now. I might need to build my confidence back up, build a little cash back up. So,
you remember Simon Sinek? Did you ever listen to stuff by him? He was so he had he talked about if you're playing the game to win, that's different than playing the game to just stay alive. And so I think sometimes people, if you're playing to win and you get a big hit like this, you feel like a failure, and look, let me tell you, you're not alone. I feel like a failure a lot sometimes. And I know why you're laughing, because you don't look at me that way, but I think everybody kind of has that.
No, I believe it.
I think that the trick is to push through that failure and say, you know what, like sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. That's a John Maxwell quote. And that was on the order of lessons. That was probably a little bit more expensive lesson than average. My dad always says, you'll appreciate this. He's like, son, that's a cheap lesson. You'll have plenty more expensive ones than that. I'm like, great, but they say, son, that's a cheap lesson, And I'm like, but I think that's the thing. If you can stay in the game, like you said, you got to make the numbers work. You got to make the cash flow work. But if you can sustain a hit that big, then you can make it. And you're going to come out ahead on the other side. And I look back at my net worth and I say, okay, it has worked. Like it doesn't always feel like it's working, but if you, and it's all relative. Like you gotta, like if you did get a job, and this is what the art of spending money has a lot to do with. If you got a job that was making twice as much as you're making now, your expenses would expand to fill that in no time.
Big time.
That's just how That's just how it
Yep.
happens, you know? So that's not the answer. Most people think it is, but it's not. And so I think I applaud you on your mindset and pushing through that, because it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So what's a big, like, and feel free to keep talking along those lines, because this is what I want to like impart to our listeners is like the confidence to push through that. But like, what's a lesson that you learned in this journey, and or like, what's the biggest fear that you didn't come true? The biggest fear you had that ended up not being a thing.
Well, I guess the trouble with that is not a thing yet, you know, because
Yeah. Yeah.
like I thought, okay, eviction, excuse me, like a big dirty eviction is probably kind of the worst case scenario, was what was in my mind. That cost me tens of thousands and lawyer fees and vacancy, damage, possibly, like just this horror story that you kind of hear about of a terrible tenant or like a scammer tenant that knows what they're doing and takes you for one. That hasn't happened. And I think I've found that dealing with the tenants has been maybe one of the things that is easier than I thought it was going to be. I think if you're just now, I've only got two, you know, so I'm kind of dealing with them like a small time guy still. Like you know, they text me when there's I don't have a system where they get on an app, and it's just kind of a relationship thing, which I know can be, like, I was cautious of that at first, but I think what I've learned is that I'm able to deal with the tenants in a way that, like, negotiate with them, and they follow the rules. I've had great tenants. So that's one thing that hasn't come true. Now, that doesn't mean it won't. I think probably it's just a matter of when, not if I'm going to do this for a long time, you know, so I kind of expect that.
So one of the things I know you and I definitely want to hit is advice for beginners. Like, you know, I'll read these out, like you can just kind of scattershot them. The minimum someone needs to know before buying the first rental, what beginner fears are overblown, what mistakes should beginners avoid, and if someone hasn't acted despite being capable, what's holding them back?
Yeah. I think one thing that comes to mind as far as, well, minimum and mistakes, a little bit in all those questions is, I think I said before, but know your why, because that's how you're going to sustain it. You know, like, why are you doing it? Understand the tools of benefit, like the bag of benefits that having rental property has, is not just the cash, the $200 a month for all of that.
Right.
So have a good understanding of that.
To outline those real quick, I mean, what would you call them? And I'll fill in anything that I think as well.
Which you probably will. I mean, I think I've mentioned them throughout. Of course, the cash flow is one,
Cash flow,
and appreciation is another, and paying down the tenants, paying down your mortgage, so you're
debt reduction,
paying down your debt. Depreciation is another one. And did I say in a hedge to inflation? I mean, I kind of think of it as floating on top. The analogy that I've heard that I like is, it's not like, I mean, you can beat inflation, but it's really just when inflation goes up, you also float atop of it. And so that's, I think that's a huge one, because inflation, I mean, you should understand inflation. That might be a mistake to not. So, like, for a newbie, understand inflation, because when you look at, what I didn't understand inflation when I thought, I'm going to go through all this for $200 a month. That doesn't, I could go mow lawns for $200 a month, but there's so many other, that engine alone, the inflation engine is.
And just to hit on that, you mentioned the 5, and I think those are the 5 key benefits. There's probably some other ones too, but those are the 5 main ones. I did not understand the power of inflation for probably the first 15 years of investing. So you're way ahead of me in terms of the investing. But, you know, Chinese proverb says, you know, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. second best time is today. Everybody I know says, man, if I'd have known what real estate would have been worth now, I'd have bought it 20 years. I'd have bought everything I could.
Right.
And I guarantee you we're going to be saying the same thing in 20 years. So that inflation, because you're locking in, especially if you're debt leveraging, which most people do, they don't buy cash, they buy on terms, they buy on on a loan. They're locking in that debt at yesterday's dollars, and they're paying it off with future dollars, which are less valuable dollars. The property goes up in value because of inflation. The debt stays the same. You're paying it off with inflated dollars. It's like magic.
Yeah.
It truly is like magic, you know?
Now, I think what a lot of those, just to be the naysayer on that, because I like to question things. And I think if I were new and somebody told me that, I would go, yeah, but the people that say that, they don't know that that house costs $200,000 over the last 20 years to upkeep or to improve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you kind of, I wonder if it equals out a little bit when you count in big maintenance costs and cap expenses and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it balances out. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But
yeah,
I think it's still.
Well, that's why I asked you. That's why I asked you about how much the equity you tracked, because I know I've had the same, like I said, those years when I replaced 25 air conditioning units, but I look at my net worth and it's still like I paid all of that money out of pocket or pulled it off of debt, most likely is what I did, like you doing right now, right? But even that net worth hit because that line of credit grows. But if the equity in that property has outpaced that line of credit, then you're still good.
I agree.
As long as and you're proving that to yourself, I'm proving that to myself. I think everybody needs to prove it to themselves. Don't just take our words for it. But I do want people to understand, like you're looking at people who are down the road. There are people out there who got out of rental property and said, this is for the birds, I'm not doing it. But I think there are far more people like us who have taken the hits. We've got the bloody chin that we're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But we're not getting out of it. We're still in it.
Well, and
that says something.
The funny thing about it too is I'm like, okay, so when I was in my like down spot about this whole cap expense with the main drain, I'm like, so what? I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna get out now. You know, like everyone's like, no, I ain't getting out now. So,
yeah, no, this is like the worst time.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna take.
That's when you go buy another one.
Exactly. So, and that's another thing that pondered. It's like, okay, the big dogs are the people who I want to be like. Many of them would take this hit and then go buy another one to help get themselves out of this hit. You know what I mean? Like, so I could go, or that's like when you're backed in a corner is when you make the big move or whatever. And there is some truth to that too. And so it, again, the psychology thing, excuse me, is powerful there because I think in all business, it's when you're kind of, like, have you read Good to Great?
Yeah,
it's an old like business. You probably did in school, maybe even. But his kind of thing is the big time leaders when everything's going down and to the left, like down and to the right instead of up and to the right. That's when they make the riskiest moves, and that's something I feel like I could grow in. Is when you're really backed in a corner. That's when you make a move, not cuddle up and be scared, And I think maybe my tendency would be to, let's play safe here. I just got this big hit. I think that is kind of a human reaction, but to really drive through and get where you want to be, I think I need to learn how to be in that spot and still go make a move. Which it builds confidence in a powerful way.
Yeah. Well, you already did in that you didn't sell out. So that's a move. That lack of move is a move. But like my first thought was like, I mean, I don't know how exactly you do this rental property, but when the stock market takes a hit, the smart investors are like, everything just went on sale. Right. Like I got to go get everything I can. And now I did do that a few years ago when the real estate like tanked. I was like, okay, this is a good time to buy. And most people were like, I ain't touching real estate. I just lost my behind on this.
Right.
And so maybe that's the mindset, and it's a perfect like what I hear you saying throughout this episode is like it's a personal growth. I have to grow personally, and that's how I'm gonna win this game. And that's what you're doing. You're saying, hey, I recognize that I need to learn how to do that better. And I'm
Which
doing the same thing.
who doesn't want to be better that way? Like even if you take wealth building out of it, everyone wants to be a more, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a more powerful person, like a more,
Mm-hmm.
not like grabbing power in the bad way, but just like a more weathered and a more mature person.
Mm-hmm.
We always want to
Yeah.
grow. And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's like instead of growing through something that won't end up making me making wealth for myself and my family, I'd rather grow along the way where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
this at least
Yeah.
the reward at the end of this growth,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, oh, I'm better, but
Mm-hmm.
I've won a little bit and
Right.
gotten some wealth for myself, which is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just because of the,
Sure.
we spoke to the why. It's not I want to be wealthy so I can have stuff. And I know that'll come, like some of that will come with it, but my goal really is to beat inflation. That's a huge one. And I think about our
Right.
kids, and I would like to be in a position to help them and teach
Mm-hmm.
them how to beat inflation as well, and
Right.
help however I can, not to just give them everything, but to get them
Right.
started at
Right.
least in a good way and teach them that stuff along the way. So it is.
Yeah.
It's a personal growth journey that
Mm-hmm.
just has this real estate piece attached to it. It's kind of the way
Sure.
that I'm growing in that way right
Mm-hmm.
now, among
Yeah.
others. But
That's awesome.
I think one big mistake that I think when I bought my first one, I kind of thought, well, I got to make this count. Like I'm not I'm not going like, okay, this is just one of 10. Like it might not be 10. It might not ever be 10 for me. And so I'm new and I needed to make it count. So that's probably part of why I overanalyzed. But I think getting a really good deal, that first one, will just
Mm-hmm.
really will catapult the
Yeah.
future of it. And so that
Mm-hmm.
first one, if you go like some mistakes I've seen people make and people talk about is like, oh, I want it to be this cute, what like a place that I could live in. If we, like they're kind of thinking about a lot of this emotional stuff. It's a
Yeah.
tool
Yeah.
of investment, and that's it. So you don't need to love
Mm-hmm.
the lawn and like
No.
have this pride of ownership as if it were the house you're living in. And oh, I don't like those shutters, so I'm not going to buy this one. Or like
Right. Right.
I think that's kind of a newbie mistake. It was something that, and they don't want to buy in a neighborhood they wouldn't live in or in a school district they wouldn't go to. And I've even heard investors have that rule for themselves. I think they have a different model. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's like if you can get a neighborhood that you think is on the edge of, I don't want to say gentrifying, but yeah, like changing its socioeconomic status,
Mm-hmm.
which is really all gentrifying is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was able to do in the two that I
Mm-hmm.
have. And so they
Right.
really, and so I'd say, yeah, I got lucky with those two because they were in just the perfect neighborhood to really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate a lot in the time I've owned them. But I think if you can get that, now again, I'm careful to say that because if you're new and you're in analysis paralysis,
Right.
this could escalate that. Like, oh, I got to make this
Right.
first one perfect.
You gotta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just got to do it. But I think if you can be extra like perfectionist on that first,
Mm-hmm.
second deal, where you can
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, if this appreciates well, then that'll catapult into other properties because I can borrow
Mm-hmm.
against them. And
Yeah.
but don't try to go out and get a house that you would live in unless you live, especially in this market, at least where I live in
Right.
Omaha. There's like kind of a pretty
Yeah.
dividing line of like where families want to live and where renters want to
Mm-hmm.
live. I think a lot of cities are different that way, but the houses where families want to live, you got to pay 250, 300,000, and the rent's 2,000. So like
Yeah.
don't
So
buy
you're not gonna
that
make
for
that
your
rule.
first
Yeah.
time unless you just get this crazy deal maybe cash flow's tight, but you got this amazing deal, and then you've got all this equity right
Hmm.
off the bat, or yeah, I don't know. That's why you have to understand the different engines to it. It's not just, oh, this I got this beautiful house and a fair deal, but I'm
Hmm.
gonna be losing money. I was talking to a friend of mine who's kind of new to this, and it's been cool to kind of walk him through some of it, because he asked questions, and he was like, I found this house, this duplex, and but I'm doing a 15-year loan because he wants to pay it off quick, and I'm gonna be losing money. Like the cash flow is not going to quite, but he's kind of thinking as a business guy, like when you start a business, you might lose money right off the bat. This isn't
Hmm.
that kind of business, I wouldn't say. And
No,
so
no, it's
don't
not.
go buy anything where your cash flow is not gonna, like, you're not cash flowing anything. And even with
Yeah,
that, I would say you should cash flow a decent amount unless the
yeah.
appreciation or the other engines are working for you. But don't,
And to
yeah,
that guy, I would say like put it on a 30-year
that's
or as long as
first
you
thing
could
I
get.
told him.
And then if you want to pay extra, the break in the rate you're going to get is not going to be a lot. So you can make it a 15-year or a 10 or whatever. You pay it off as fast as you want, but yeah, at least you don't have to have that
Totally. And
because
when I told him that, it just made all kinds of sense to him. So like,
yeah.
I think he's
Hmm.
just, and
Good
he's
advice.
this
Good
is
job.
what's interesting is this guy is a smart business guy, makes a lot of money.
Hmm. Hmm.
He does very well in his job. He's a smart guy. So it's not
Yeah.
like that. It's just that these couple little pieces of knowledge that kind of
Yep.
dawn on people that are important to realize. And so, big mistake. Don't go buy something that you think one day might be a good, or
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
and after I do this or that, especially for that first one, just get one that cash flows. And if you can get a great deal on a distressed property, perhaps, and
There's
put
a
a
lot
little
of
money
value
into
add.
it,
Yeah.
to me,
You
that's the way to go.
Yeah, worst house in the best neighborhood,
Right.
or worst house in a so-so neighborhood. I mean, I've told you this. Many of my early rentals were in neighborhoods I wouldn't dream of. And my wife especially, she's like, I'd never stay in one of your rentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but even though those didn't appreciate as fast, and so I have cycled out of a lot of those. My area is a little different, I think, than yours. It's not quite so black and white,
Yeah, it is.
or it's not quite so stark. I mean, black and white
It's
like that,
pretty
but.
stark
Uh,
here.
yeah, so to me, you just want a nice, like a safe, livable, like stable, steady neighborhood. It doesn't have to be like the Taj Mahal, but it shouldn't be in the worst part of town that nobody wants to live in. But even when I bought those, I still made money on them.
Yeah, and
Not as
there's,
much as I would have,
am I
you know.
correct to kind of understand that in those types of neighborhoods, the cash flow is generally a little higher, but just
Yeah,
you don't count on appreciation. You don't try
yeah,
and beautify the house. You just have it,
yeah.
and it doesn't go up much, but your cash flow is good. And then eventually you dump it off to somebody else who, whatever.
Well, and I'd even say what I learned is the cash flow, as much as it looked good on paper, because of the quality of tenant, there was a lot more maintenance, repair, drama, skipping rent, chasing rent.
Gotcha.
It really wasn't better cash flow
Gotcha.
because the asset wasn't good. And I always tell people this: you want to bait, because my wife said I would never live in your rentals, and I was always amazed when we met how good of a renter she was. And I was like, well, what do I have to do to get renters like you? And she's like, you got to get better houses,
Right.
because I would never live here. And that's one thing I realized. I'm like, responsible people that actually pay their bills and are freaked out by being a day late, they wouldn't live in so I have got to get something that a responsible tenant that wants a decent place, that's
That's a
and
hard
that's
balance.
yeah, it is a hard balance. So, but I think you're right about people making emotional decisions, because you can look past the shutters and like you can fix that.
Hmm.
You can't change the location. That's why they say the three most important rules: location, location, location. So that's some great advice. That's some wise, sound advice. So
Yeah, don't get emotionally attached to the house like you would a house you live in, because
mhm.
I do get that way. Like I really love houses, and
Yeah, me
I
too.
want my house to be like awesome. And I mean, as
Hmm.
awesome as I could afford, but even if you can only
Yeah,
afford a little bit of house, you can still make that house awesome.
yes, you
And
can.
so I think uh try not to get that emotionally like, oh, I just dream of having this little handful of houses that are all cute and I love them and they're in these great neighborhoods. Because like you were saying, to get those renters that like Rhonda, responsible renters, nicer houses, they cost more. And at
Hmm.
least here in Omaha, maybe this is a universal thing, but as the purchase price or retail value of the house goes up, the rents don't go up in proportion. So like that
That's
1%, that
correct.
old
Yeah.
1% rule, I can get
Yeah.
$100,000 house that can get me $1,000 a month, 1,100 bucks a month, but I can't get a $300,000 house that's going to be 3,000 a month. And so
Right.
you have to play
Right.
that in between. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to be a landlord, you kind of have to deal with some of that riffraff.
Hmm.
But it is just, I was nervous about my ability to deal with the hardcore riffraff. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to get a house that was I could have gotten a house for 60 grand, but I decided to get a house for 110. And I think I got a good
Hmm.
deal on it. And when I first got it, I got 1,200. So that wasn't that great. That was about right. But now it's 1,750 on that
Hmm.
place is the rents on that place. And
Hmm.
so that house, and that's the one where the main broke, and it makes me feel a little better.
Right. Sure.
And maybe I need to just refinance, but I got such a great interest rate on that, 4% for an investment property.
Don't refi
Yeah, just
that.
HELOC is what you'd say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
But
like it. Yeah.
yeah, which I'm not that we want to get all into this, but I've done some research on that and I can't find very many banks. I've probably talked to 4 banks, then they won't
It's hard.
HELOC on an investment property. So
Yeah. What would you say the value of that property is now? You bought it for 110.
I think it's about 170, 175.
Okay. So, I don't know if you want to share numbers, but I know what you
I'll
spent on
share
that
numbers. Yeah,
main, and it's less than the equity that you have in it, like you said,
totally.
and that's the key thing. You
Yeah,
just
no,
saw ahead. And you cash flowed more or less the whole time.
I owe 68 on it. So
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome,
like,
man.
it's great, except for
Hmm.
this thing.
Yeah.
It's been
Well, but
great.
the fact that you have 100,000 equity in it now, essentially, you know, you could have spent $100,000 on that main and you'd be even,
Right. Right.
like that would suck. I'm not saying you should celebrate that, but if it was less than 100 grand, and I know it was, then it's fine.
And when I
So
wrap it in with the other one, the equity that the other
yeah,
one has, and so like, yeah, it's in the big picture, the money I spent on the main isn't a killer. It's just like,
yeah, it just sucks. I mean, it does. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to tell you it doesn't suck.
yeah,
We talked about that. I remember when you called me about it. I was like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
but so what do you think your next steps are? Like what's your portfolio look like in the next several years, and what's the next step? And like maybe what advice would you give to your younger self? Which you already gave advice to newbies, but would that be the same advice or different?
Probably similar. Yeah. So when I first did it, I think, and I'm not sure I'll make my goal, but when I first did it, and after I got my second one, I said, I think I can get 6 in a decade. That's what I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to kind of. And I remember when I told you that, and you were like, "Oh man, you can get way more than that." I'm like, I hear you, but I think that's pretty realistic. Um,
Oh, it's
and so
gradually then suddenly, because the fact that you have 2 in 5 years, it it doesn't keep growing at the same rate.
I thought that would be the case, except that it's not. Like I thought, oh, the cash flow from these rental properties will pile up in such a way that it will snowball more and I can buy more. But I'm going to have to get better at working with debt and things I think, to move forward.
Hmm.
Because, like we have a rental account that saves all of our cash flow, but there's been times where we're like, hey, we need a car. And it's not like we go get
Hmm.
a $30,000 car. I go to an auction and buy a $5,000 car for my kids. We had to
Hmm.
replace 2 cars in 2024, 2024 and 5. And so, there's just ways that it kind of, and that's not an excuse. It's just,
No, it's not an excuse. It's just life happening.
Yeah, it's life happening. And so, um, it doesn't, especially after this hit, like I'm below zero on my cash flow picture, like my day to day. And so, I think it's going to take, I still hope that I can hit the 6, but it doesn't seem like in 5 years it's become way more possible for me to get more, I guess is what I mean.
What do you mean it hit the 6?
6 in 10 years. I was kind of thinking.
Oh, 6 in 10 years. I was thinking 10.
Yeah, that would be my goal, is 6 properties or 6 units in 10 years from 2022 is when I said that.
Okay, so you have what, 7 more years? Is that right? Yeah. So it's 2026 is in a couple of days from this
7,
filming.
8.
So, but that means you just got to buy a fourplex, and you got like 4 years to do that, 4 or 5 years to buy a fourplex.
Which would be I think my plan is to get some kind of multifamily next. So I think at least a duplex that's either built for purpose or not. Although the built for purpose around here are very expensive. Like they are not.
What's that mean?
Like
they build
actual duplexes, and then people buy single families and switch them into duplexes, which is more affordable. But the built for purpose, they're just expensive, and none of the ones I see, the cash flow makes sense. And so I don't know if I just need to get off the MLS too. Like, you hear people talk about deals that aren't on the MLS. I've been pretty much on the MLS since I've been doing this. And it's not like deals are coming to me. I don't like cold call. I don't do any of the cold. I'm not that aggressive with at least not yet.
Right. And I'm sure your realtor knows you're looking for a duplex or fourplex or something.
Yeah, she knows.
I'm sure they're hard to find. The duplexes and fourplexes, in my experience, are hardest to find because lots of people are looking for that.
Right.
One of the things that a mentor of mine taught me, he's like, if you play in the bigger sandboxes, there are fewer people playing there, and you'll get better deals. Everybody's looking for. Yeah, and those might not be on the MLS. I know they have them around here, but he was talking bigger numbers, and he said, well, if you go to an auction, you're looking for a $50,000 property. Everybody's looking for a $50,000 property. There's going to be 10 people lined up, and they're going to bid it up to 60. And that's not going to be a good deal.
Yeah.
He said, if you go with $1 million and you're looking for $1 million property, you're going to get a $2 million property for $1 million.
Right.
Because there's not many people. And so that, I kind of shrunk that down a little bit, and I said, okay, well, what are some things that people aren't looking for? Like, everybody's looking for what I'm looking for. What are some things that scare people that I'm not scared of or too stupid to, have the fear to have?
Yeah.
So I mean, that not prescribing that for you, because I know you might not be ready for that step, but
don't you? I mean, you need a couple of $100,000 ready to invest to make that kind of deal, right?
Not necessarily. So here's a tip for you, and we could talk a little bit more about this offline when it's more specifics, but you have equity in your properties. Some banks will let you, when it comes to commercial properties like that, they'll let you what they call cross-collateralize.
Okay.
So use the collateral that you have in the bank, and instead of a cash down payment of $100,000, they'll let you pledge that $100,000 against the new property. So that's $100,000 down payment. And I'm simplifying because they won't let you go all the way 100% loan value.
Yeah. Just
but
like
maybe
a HELOC would, basically, right?
80%, which puts you up to 140 something. Then whatever that delta is between the 68 and the 140 something, that's a usable, because I've got that on a couple of, and they still make you do the loan, like it becomes 100% loan on the new property.
Gotcha.
But the equity is just tied up. You can't HELOC it. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's still 100% loan. Right. So it's that property may not cash flow on 100% loan exactly, or it might be real tight, but you're using the equity and you're still having that cash flow that you don't have any new debt on over here. Your other piece. So there's options,
Yeah.
but but anyway, I
That
was
sounds big.
curious.
Sounds scary, but
It's a definitely an interesting concept, but anyway. So what else? What else do you want to share with our listeners? Because I think I mean, you've already shared so much value today, and I know that it might not feel like that, but I think I'm really pumped about this episode and I really think it's going to unlock some people's minds when it comes to doing this.
yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think that was the goal from the beginning, and I am kind of just new enough to still like remember what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not that you can't, but just like I was
No, but
living in
that's
that
distant memories.
very,
Mhm.
very short time ago and still kind of live in that, sometimes doubting and all that. So yeah, I think it's a winning formula, but I think before you should get into it, know the formula and know the why, know the
Mhm.
tools that like at least read a few books on, maybe that's way behind anybody watching that's new, but and I would definitely recommend doing pretend deals. That was one of the most
Yeah, I
valuable
agree.
because you can just lose details of things like, oh, I need to know exactly what that's going to cost. How do I figure out exactly what that's going to cost? So it leads you down these trails of
Hmm.
having to find information that I think is
Yeah.
super valuable. So do your research, don't analysis paralysis, but know what you're doing when you get into it would be an advice that I have.
Yeah, and in one of the earlier episodes, I did I shared the spreadsheet I use and talked through people through it. So maybe we can link that in the show notes. The previous episode, if somebody wants to do exactly what you're saying, and I tell people that you use this for pretend deals, do
Yeah.
as many deals as you can. It'll drive you to go find the detail, find the information, and do it. And then once you do that a few times, you're going to be a lot more educated.
Yeah, it's a lot of work at first, but you
It
then
is.
you get quicker at it. You get to estimate a little better and things. So
I think sometimes people do overanalyze and they wait longer. And during that time, like it's not like your first one's going to be perfect or even great. My first several weren't great. Now I still made money on them. They were okay. I didn't make terrible mistakes, but it was that momentum to get started. And so,
right.
and I think that's where I was saying, like, I've seen you get better at like not so much try to get the perfect one. I mean, it's not like you're getting married. You're getting married, you want the perfect one. You don't screw that one up. But like houses, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have some hits along the way, and each one of those hits you're going to learn from. And it's just like, how quickly can you get hit? How quickly can you learn? Because
Right.
I'm not going to say you're going to make money on every last one, but I've made money on way more than I've lost money on. I've probably lost money on a couple, but there were a bunch.
I actually lost money. And it's hard to lose money.
It is. And I really don't think I lost money on any. I can't think of any. I'm just saying like I might have, but
like if you buy at the wrong time and everything crashes right after,
yeah.
and then you decide to get out, then you can lose money.
Well, and that's the thing. If you give up, then you lose. If you don't give up, you can't. Like I tell people this all the time. If you bought a house in 2003 or 4 or 5, right before the market crash, and then it went down by 50%, in 10 years you were back even, and then it's twice as much as it was at that point right now. So you can't lose. Real estate is not gonna. I mean, unless there's some unprecedented historical event, which happened during COVID. And by the way, COVID was like one of the most financially productive times to invest in real estate.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I'm like. You almost can't imagine a universe in where you don't make money in real estate if you hang in there long enough,
Yeah, I think that's true.
So yeah, I mean, as we're landing this plane, and thank you so much for this time. This is really good. It's good stuff. But
thank you.
What other any other advice do you have for your younger self?
But yeah, it's just that delicate balance, because you're right. Like I did kind of have that. This first one has to count. But if that went too far, you'd never do it, because there's always some reason to, oh, this could happen, this could happen. So I do think it's more important to just do enough research
Mm-hmm.
to understand your why, and to understand that your why mean you quit in 5 years? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
So then that why is going to carry you through. So establish your why. Don't just do it because you see other people doing it, like for FOMO or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But and then do enough research. But yeah, you just got to dive in and
Yeah.
kind of encounter those things as they come, and
Mm-hmm.
build confidence along the way as you grow
Yeah.
in your ability to deal with unexpected things and to be uncomfortable in some areas. I think you're right that and most people say this now, it's not a get rich quick.
No, yeah.
It's a process. And again, that's why you have to know your why. Because if your why is, this is the why, I want to make $500,000 in 5 years on real estate, you may fail.
Yeah.
And so, because if that's the kind of the wrong why
Right, yeah.
for the wrong tool.
Yeah. Well, one of the you've all heard the saying, like, "Oh, what would you do if you knew what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail?" Like that's kind of like But John Maxwell says something different, which I really love. This really rocked my world when I first heard it, and I've shared it. I have a business partner in some land development stuff, not the rentals, but he and I talk about this quote a lot because John Maxwell modifies that a little bit. He says, "What would you do if by doing it you knew you would fail miserably? But at the bottom of that failure, a door would open to a success that would go beyond your wildest dreams. Like, what would you try?" And the reason that that's so powerful to me is because we tried this land development thing and we failed, and it was almost a really bad failure. Like, we almost lost a lot of money, and we actually got thrown out of this, surveyor's office who was trying to screw us over or whatever. And but because of that failure, it opened up the door that we would have never seen this door because we would have never been in this position of failure. And it's really changed the trajectory on that business. So I really like that because it has to do with failure, and it has to do with embracing failure. And so, and you're kind of in a backwards way, you're kind of saying the same thing. Like, if you just do it, you're going to learn some things, and you won't be sorry, so.
Yep. And hopefully mathematics would say there's a reward at the end.
Yeah.
If you can even call it the end.
Yeah.
What's the end anyway?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
There's math. I believe the math.
Yeah, I do too.
And so even like some of the stuff that comes with it, and this math doesn't make sense right now, the overall math really does make sense. And I kind of cling to that when my feelings tell me otherwise,
Well, I'm really pumped. I'm really excited for your journey. Like I said before, I'm proud of you. That might be cheesy, but I love you, man, and I really appreciate
love you too,
our relationship and your family. It was great seeing y'all recently at my brother's wedding, and it's awesome. So,
yeah, you've been a big part of me doing this. I think just it helps me to see people that I know and love, that I know will tell me the truth, that I can trust, that are like further down the road. And so, you've been I remember that first conversation we had. You used an analogy that I think you've shared on this podcast several times that I've heard, and you told it to me too. Hey, if you get $100,000 house, say it's the worst investment known to man, it doesn't appreciate at all in 30 years, and you don't even cash flow on it, and you still got this. So that's kind of the worst case scenario. Which is why it's hard to lose money. Right. I think you can lose money if you're too risky, probably. Like, I think you can get to such a risk level where you could lose money if you're borrowing everything. And you don't know how to flip out of that debt. Because that's a skill in and of itself, is working with debt. But it's hard to lose money. The win is pretty clear over the long haul.
Yeah.
And my goals are being met. And so, at least with these two.
Yeah.
So thank you for the inspiration and the help along the way.
My pleasure. That's music to my ears.
It's loving and generous of you to be willing to talk to people like me, I think, even though I know we're family, but I know you talk to many others that aren't family and I just think that's really generous. It'd be easy for you to
Yeah.
be like, hey, I figured this out. Not everyone can. And so I'm going to just do my thing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you helping other people along. And
Yeah.
it means a lot.
Oh man, means a lot to me. And like I said, that's part of the reason for this podcast. Cause I love having those conversations with you and like even perfect strangers. Like it's especially rewarding for people that I love already, but people that I can help. And that's why this podcast came to be. Cause I was like, man, I need to be able to, I'd love to have this conversation with thousands of people. And now I can. So, So thank you for that brainchild, the seed that was sown years ago. So, but all right, man. Well, thank you, and thank you to our listeners. Thank you for joining us on another great episode of the Will Frederick Podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. See you next time.